Captain Marvel makes her MCU debut in a movie that's higher, further, and faster than, well, other movies, I guess. Also, stage plays and books. It's so fast, in fact, you may have missed some of the fun little Easter eggs, 90s references, and nods to Marvel lore that the filmmakers threw in there. But fear not, we tracked them all down for you, because we're nice people. Captain Marvel is set back in the day in the hella cool year of 1995. Whoop, there it is.
Grunge is a good look for you.
Did you have a rough day, Agent Fury?
Everything from the fashion to the soundtrack have that 90s feel, but there are also some quick references you may have missed. Off the top, the usual Marvel intro card has been updated to a touching tribute to the late Stan Lee, of course, but did you notice that during his cameo on the train, he's reading the script for Kevin Smith's Mallrats? That movie was actually released in 1995 and featured one of Stan's original movie cameos, so it makes sense he'd be a bit nervous and want to run his lines. Stan the Man also showed up in Kevin Smith's 2016 film Yoga Hosers.
Damn yoga hosers.
So let's move on. Carol first arrives on Earth by crash landing inside a Blockbuster video store. That takes me back. She immediately shoots the head off an Arnold Schwarzenegger standee for True Lies. That film was released in 1994, so it gives us an immediate sense of what year it is. But it also closes with a memorable scene of Arnold piloting a fighter jet, just like Carol Danvers did when she lived on Earth. Carol also quickly picks up and sets down a videotape of The Right Stuff. Philip Kaufman's classic 1983 film is about the early days of the U.S. space program and follows a number of former pilots who go to space in an experimental aircraft, just like Carol does. A bit later in the movie, Nick Fury references having just seen his very own alien autopsy. He's probably referencing a popular TV special that aired on Fox in the year 1995. It supposedly featured 17 minutes of black and white footage of an actual autopsy being performed in secret on an extraterrestrial by the US government. As if. Speaking of Fury, he identifies himself a few times in Captain Marvel as Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. This, of course, references the title of his classic Marvel comic book, as well as the 1998 movie version starring David Hasselhoff as Fury, which I'd like to stress to all of you is 100% real. In the movie, Annette Bening's Kree scientist is named MAR-VELL, but while on Earth, she goes by the human alias Dr. Wendy Lawson. Now, way back in the Silver Age of comics, when Captain Marvel first debuted, he was a Kree spy named MAR-VELL who came to Earth and took on the identity of a dead human scientist. His name? Dr. Walter Lawson. I see what you did there.
Aren't you the cutest little thing? Aren't you cute?
Not all the names were kept totally consistent from comic to film, though. In the comics, Carol's pet cat is named Chewie, a reference to Chewbacca from Star Wars. In the movie, though, they switched the cat's name to Goose, most likely a reference to Tom Cruise's best friend from the dogfight classic Top Gun. That cat can be my wingman any day. Goose's FLERKEN powers remained pretty consistent in the movie from page to screen. In the comics, FLERKENs can lay up to 117 eggs, possess various tentacles that extend from out their mouths, and have pocket dimensions inside their own bodies. That must be how Goose was able to store an Infinity Stone in there. See, it all makes perfect sense. Captain Marvel also helps us to make sense of some previously unseen segments of the MCU timeline. We see the origin of Nick Fury's eye patch, what prompted him to rename the Protector Initiative into the Avenger Initiative, and some backstory about Ronan the Accuser and Korath the Pursuer before they fully broke from the Kree Empire and went rogue. But perhaps most intriguingly, the new film sets up some unanswered questions about the movement of the Tesseract, which holds the Space Stone before Thanos crushes it in his bare hand. Here's what we know. The Tesseract was on Earth in a vault being protected by Asgardians until 1942, when it was stolen by Johann Schmidt, aka Red Skull. He loses it at sea, and it's recovered by Howard Stark after the war, which he ultimately passes along to S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, we thought that S.H.I.E.L.D. held on to it until the year 2012, when it was stolen by Loki, who used it to open a portal into space and began the Battle of New York in the first Avengers film. But in Captain Marvel, we find out that from at least 1989 until 1995, the Tesseract was actually in the possession of the Kree scientist MAR-VELL, who was keeping it in her orbiting laboratory and using it to experiment with faster-than-light speed travel. So how did MAR-VELL get it? Did S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Asgardians know it was missing? Did they loan it to her? Is it possible that these Infinity Stones had all kinds of side adventures we haven't heard about yet that Marvel will spend the next several decades filling in? Who knows? I'm exhausted just thinking about making all those videos. Let's jump to the mid-credits scene where we see the Avengers who survived the snap, specifically Cap, Rhodey, Black Widow, and a still apparently Hulk-free Bruce Banner using Carol's souped-up space pager. It seems like they haven't made a ton of progress responding to Thanos yet, so we can safely assume that Carol is integral to their future plans to set things right. When the first Avengers Endgame trailer hit, there was a lot of speculation that one character seemed to be missing or digitally removed from all the shots. Could that be Carol?
Try to keep up.
While we're rampantly speculating, one more thing to consider. In this film, we meet Carol's lifelong friend, Maria Rambeau, and her daughter, Monica. In the comics, Monica grows up to be a future Captain Marvel herself. She's currently the hero known as Spectrum. But remember, this movie is set in 1995,
and Avengers Endgame takes place years later.
So by then, little Monica will have grown up and may be ready to help her pal Auntie Carol take down Thanos. There's even a reference to Monica potentially flying through space one day in the movie, which of course she does all the time in the comics and may do on the big screen within a few months. Carol's nickname for Monica, by the way, Lieutenant Trouble, that's from the comics too, but it's not a Monica Rambeau reference. In the books, this is Carol's name for Kit Renner, a little girl who becomes something of a sidekick for her. Hey, did anyone notice that the movie opens amidst all the dust and debris of MAR-VELL's experimental ship exploding? Kinda looks like that post-snap Marvel apocalypse a little bit, right? What do you think? Will Spectrum show up in Avengers Endgame? How did MAR-VELL get her hands on the Tesseract? Think the Mind Stone and Reality Stone were just floating around in space, getting into trouble in the 90s as well? Maybe going to raves or playing hacky sack? Hit us up in the comments and let us know. Okay, catch you on the flippity flop. I'm Audi 5000.